We can translate our senators on, I think we can. We need to just all.
Will do. Thanks, Chris.
No. Thanks for your help.
Yeah.
Ben.
Good, man. Pretty good. Just busy. Ready for fall break.
Yes.
Truly ready.
Just like a rock during fall break, just do nothing.
Yeah.
You watch movies.
MJ's been going through like movies and TV shows that she's been into. She watched the new live action Lilo and Stitch. And she's like, I gotta at least see
Does
it.
she like it?
No.
Yeah, I heard it's very unnecessary.
The CGI was a little off, you know. She said the best part were the aliens. She's like, that's the best part.
I mean, they're all great. That's
Yeah. But yeah, you know, she was like, it was. What was it?
I love that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like you can like pull them back and go.
Oh,
If you stretch it, yeah, if you stretch it out.
interesting. Okay. Interesting.
No. This should be good enough for my, okay, that's what I thought. I thought it was. I mean, I don't need it to be close. I have a big voice. So.
Yeah. And for the people in here, we just may pass this around if you all ask questions and stuff like that. Just because the first session we did. Yeah.
Yeah, they're intentionally made to like toss, like, because, you know,
Are you
ooh,
ready?
sorry. I
Sure,
didn't mean-
right now, I'm gonna go through
Straight
the.
out.
Yeah, but they're like intended to be
It's like.
durable.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Mhm.
I kind of just thought they were like stuff.
Yeah.
They're the Noel Studios version of the Lagoon.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Right.
La Noella,
Yeah, exactly.
that did not work.
But I think the first session we had, with me and Pete, the only big piece of feedback was that we did not utilize that enough when people were asking questions. And so you could hear like mumbles and then me and Pete just like, be like, oh yeah, great question. Then we go into it and it's like, oh, we're missing a lot of the content here.
A free question, you don't get to hear it.
Yeah.
The secret question.
That. I've got 1:30 if you.
I'm ready when you're ready,
Do you want
so
me to give you an intro or anything, or do you want to just jump into it?
I can just jump in, it's fine.
Okay, all right, cool. I'll handle the Zoom and, yeah, go for it.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Cindy Judd. Dana is not going to be here today, so I'll be covering her part of the session. She is doing the exit ticket part, so now it'll be me doing the whole thing. She's got a sick child at home, so. Just a little bit about me. I'm a librarian. I'm also an adjunct instructor for the College of Education and Applied Human Sciences. And I taught GSD for 5 or 6 years, through the COVID good times. And then I stopped teaching it after that. But I still teach for the College of Ed. So, just to give you a little agenda. So we're focusing on bell ringers and exit slips. We called the session bookending success, you know, the very beginning of class, the very end of class. And so we're going to talk about the purpose of them. We're going to give you examples. If I was sitting in your chair, I always want somebody to give me an example. So I'm going to give you multiple examples. And I'm also going to give you guys some time to hopefully practice a little bit, maybe come up with some ideas that we can share together. That might be potential bell ringers and or exit slips that you could use yourself. So, all right. So first thing we're going to do is test my first time ever using Canva Live. So this is an example for us of a bell ringer. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys participate in a Canva Live, what do you call it? A Q&A interactive session here. So if you have a device, you can go to canva.live and enter that code, or you could use the QR code. Since you've got laptops, frankly, it's super easy on a laptop. And all it's going to do is ask you to enter the code, which is kind of small. I should have put that. Well, I can't put it on there because it changes every time since it's a Canva Live. But if you will answer that question, describe your GSD students in 6 words. Think about your students. Describe them in 6 words. And if this was a bell ringer, a true bell ringer, and depending on how if you use a whiteboard, if you use a projector, you would, this class starter bell ringer, there's all kinds of names for it, is my students in 6 words. So you can look at some of these. When I was doing this, I was practicing this. The 2 words that I'm seeing so far that I also put, if I was describing my students in my other classes, would be overwhelmed and sleepy. I think somebody put tired or something in here. I put that on there as well. So, yeah, just thinking about anxious, tired. We're also tired. Quiet, disengaged. Those are words that we're going to connect with in a few minutes. Maybe you can find some ways to pull some stuff out of them. Happy, anxious, quiet. I see a lot of quiet, unsure, youthful. It's a good word, youthful. Eager. That was another word. Bill. I don't know where Bill is, but Bill, I also put that on mine. Eager. I put that as mine. Curious, nervous. Somebody said engaged. So some of you have students who are actually engaged. That's great. Exhausted, energetic, friendly, intelligent, funny. That was another one I put. Diverse, sleepy. Yes. A lot of napping. Lots of napping. Fresh, naive, guarded. Yeah. Ooh. Overwhelmed, but doing well. Vocal. So some of you have the loud group. Somebody has the loud group. They should attach to electronics. Okay. That's so true. So if you wanted to do an activity like this is one tool that you could use. This is Canva Live. What I love about Canva Live is that there's no learning curve. You don't have to type something in, some code on you type a code if you go to some things where you put the code if you're doing it on your phone, but there's no like logging in, anything like that. It just posts it. And you do have some control over what's displayed, but it flows right into a presentation you're already doing. So if you're using Canva, which I am, then it's an easy way to just embed it right in there. So this is an example. This is one type of bell ringer or class starter that doesn't involve a community building kind of environment, right? This is very sort of passive. There's no vocals. There's no, I could follow this up with a conversation. If I asked the students to describe themselves in 6 words, and I, shared like I did with you all some of those things, I might even ask a few brave souls. So if anybody, everything's anonymous. Bill did sign into his, saw Bill. But if you had, if you wanted to require that, you could say, okay, so, Bethany, I see that you put overwhelmed, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Or I could just say to the students, does anybody want to elaborate? And there's usually 1 or 2, right? There's usually at least 1 or 2 who will kind of chat. If you're like me, I've had a mix in the past of groups that are like, they all want to talk. But usually it's, in my experience, it's usually more who don't want than do want. Of course, that depends on the time of day too, as well, right? So, but there's lots of ways we could use something like this, where you could just let it be passive. And all it does is pull them into whatever the class, it sort of it immediately immerses them in an engagement with you. And it can be low tech. This was not low tech. We could, I mean, not that this is high tech, but you know, we're using technology. But there's not a lot involved, right? Pretty simple, just a way to like pull everybody together and let's push aside what you had before you came in here and let's get busy. So bell ringers, they're AKA, they're called all kinds of things, kickstarters, do nows, warm-ups, class starters. There's lots of names for them, but they're simply a way to bring students together at the beginning of class to help them kind of focus on what we're doing. And so they can be just like we did, they can be almost an icebreaker kind of thing, or more effectively, maybe not more effectively, also effectively tie it into something they were to have read the night before, that kind of thing. So quick prompts for active learning, encourage critical thinking. And again, it can be an icebreaker type thing like what we just did, or it could be something tied to the GSD textbook, the MAC series, or whatever it is that you're covering. The benefits are maybe obvious. They are a way to increase student engagement. So again, they can be really low stakes, quick and dirty, you know, quick and easy, but right at the very beginning, especially if you make this a routine, they know as soon as they come in, we're going to do a bell ringer. It's already projected, it's up on a board, it's on a handout in front of them, but the more that you can get them into that routine, this is what we're going to do if you have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You don't have to do it every day. Maybe you only do it on Mondays or you only do it on Wednesdays. But the idea of routine, again, they just know, okay, it's Wednesday, we're going to do our bell ringer today. It creates that consistency. There's something really comforting. I think that's a good word to describe comforting about consistency for students and knowing what to expect. That's just something a lot of them really need, even if they don't necessarily say it to us. And it also sets expectations. So they know, again, they know to expect them either every day, once a week, but it's a clear established routine and it clearly communicates this is what we're going to do. And again, it doesn't have to be the same kind of thing. Sometimes, depending on your class, you might have, again, something like what we did here. It might be something on paper. You might have Post-it notes around the room. But the idea is they know to expect this. And they know as soon as I come into Mrs. Judd's class, this is what we're going to be doing. So in terms of creating effective bell ringers, the idea is to create a balance of engagement and structure. So you can see here, I'm not going to read all of these, but the idea, one of the things that I think is could be really helpful with these, and I think the one that I tied mine to was wellness. So I know in the chapter, and I haven't seen the newest iteration of the textbook, but I think there's one about like the 8 dimensions or 7 dimensions of wellness, right? And so you think about, for example, different chapters of the textbook they have to read. If you align these with those learning objectives, with those textbook chapters or whatever it is you're going to cover, again, it's connecting it with, okay, it's not just this thing we're doing, even though it can be fun. It doesn't have to be, you know, the super high stakes thing, but it does let them know that you're connecting that with what they're supposed to be reading and learning. Design tasks that can be done independently in a short amount of time, or sometimes, depending on your objective, you may want to build community. But the idea is that this is something that's going to take, 5 or 6 minutes at the beginning of class. You don't want it to take too much time away. Of course, you could develop this into something more, but the idea is that it's something that's just the first few minutes of class. I also really love that one of the best practices for bell ringers is the same best practice for exit slips, and that is reflection on key concepts. So again, if you're thinking about wellness, the examples I'm going to give you in a minute of some bell ringers are tied to wellness. At the end, you can ask them, first of all, you're asking them to think about what they're thinking, right? That metacognition. But then at the end, you're asking them to reflect on what they've learned. So the reflection part can happen at the beginning of class as well as at the end. And I personally think the best way to do this is to vary the formats. So not every day, one day it'll be on a piece of paper, one day it'll be on, they'll text a response, one day there'll be whiteboards or Post-it notes. I think it's better to vary those formats, and that way, if you have someone who hates to use technology, they don't like to use their phone all the time, okay, that'll be almost no one, but somebody who wants to put that down, then handwriting something, and then again, maybe you do something in a group as opposed to always doing it individual. But it's also a way for you, and again, this is also similar for the exit slips, that it is a way to kind of get the temperature. Are they, if you're asking them about wellness, for example, then you're kind of getting a feel for, did they read? Do they even know what you're talking about when you talk about environmental wellness or some of these things, not just mental or physical, right? Those are obvious. So, all right, so I'm going to take my cheat sheet out here because the notes for these two examples are actually in the slides that you will get. So I didn't put them on the slides because it was a whole lot of information, but I did put them in the notes if you wanted to try something like this. So these are two very specific, different examples, but both of them are tied to the topic of wellness. You'll notice on the left, the wellness corners. At the bottom, the purpose of this format is to build community. So this particular bell ringer is going to have them engage and talk and chat with each other. The other one, the self-check at the bottom, it says the purpose of the format is a calm transition into class and personal reflection. If you have a super quiet class, then especially at the beginning of the semester, building community may be your goal. And you really want to pull some stuff, like I need you to use your words, right? So the corners, the goal of that is still touching on promoting discussion and community while helping them reflect on the different types of wellness. So again, it's basically the same goals for each, but in one, I want them to talk. And in another, I need them to let's bring it down. Just, think quietly, think to yourself, reflect to yourself. Okay, so the wellness corners. So what you would do with this, and of course, the classroom setup is going to really affect if this is going to work or not. But you label your areas, your 7 areas. I don't know if it's 8 now, 7. I have 7. I think it's 7. And you basically, around your room, put up some kind of sign that you printed out or hand wrote that has the 7 different dimensions of wellness. So social, emotional, academic, spiritual, and you'd have those all put up. So then you could either display or read aloud to them. Choose your wellness corner. Think about which area of wellness you're feeling strongest in right now. And think, you could also do weakest in, right? But you could have them think, what area that do you feel strongest in right now? And go stand under that sign. Okay, so as soon as they come in, put your stuff down, the signs are up around the room, and either projected or somehow communicated to them, go find the area that you feel the strongest in. Once they are there, then at their little corner, even though it's not a corner, at their little section, what you want to do is to prompt them to talk to each other and answer questions like, why did you choose this area of wellness today? Maybe last week it was not your strength, but today this is your strength. What do you do that supports this kind of wellness in your life? Physical wellness, are you at the gym regularly? Do you walk? What is it that do you do yoga, whatever it is? Have you used any EKU campus resources to help with this? So now we're pulling in, because we're going to talk to them, right, about campus resources. Now we're tying it specifically to content. We're tying it to what's available on the campus. It's going to help continue to build that as a strength in you. So they're talking to each other about that. And then after you give them 3 or 4 minutes to talk to each other about that, then you can have a whole class reflection for a few minutes. Ask 1 or 2 volunteers from each group to share something they discussed. Encourage them You could also encourage them to, jot down or note, oh, I didn't know there was a counseling center on campus or whatever. I didn't know there was, these yoga classes in the evenings or whatever it is. So the idea is that you're tying to the textbook, we're tying to campus resources. Those are things we're always promoting in GSD. And for me, for that, the purpose of that format is I want to build community, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest things we're doing in GSD is really building community, right? So a different one, same topic, wellness. So in this one, this wellness self-check. So this can just be in, one-on-one there, or you could do a pair share, like I think pair share as well. So you take 5 or so minutes to reflect and respond in writing to the prompts. And so you're going to give them these prompts. The first one is circle or identify the area of wellness you feel strongest in right now. Same thing, but this is an individual activity. So you give them the 7 areas. Then ask them, why did you choose that one? What's going well in that area of your life? Third, what area do you want to work on? So if we were doing wellness corners, we could then do this too, right? We could say, okay, this is where you're strongest. Where's the area you need to grow in or you want to grow in? And have them switch corners or switch spots, right? So which area do you want to work on more? And what's one way EKU might be able to help you grow in that area? Okay, so again, right now, this is just individually reflecting, jotting down some notes. And if you wanted, you could turn this into a pair share, right? And have them turn to a neighbor, and talk and share what they wrote. And, kind of encourage them to listen. Okay, sometimes you can do really easy things like turn a timer on for 1 minute. Okay, so choose who's going to go first. And when you put the timer on, then it sort of holds them more accountable. Okay, so for right now, the only person that's going to speak, who's going to go first? Okay, everybody. Okay, so Alex is going to go first. And then in 1 minute, when this bell goes off, the timer goes off, and we're going to switch. And then whoever Alex's partner is, now they're going to talk for a minute or whatever. And so building little tiny things and like those timers and sort of holding them a little bit accountable, like you're going to have to talk, doesn't always work, but it can be a little bit of an incentive to encourage them. But the wellness self-check, the purpose again is like a transition from just got out of the hall, you just finished lunch, whatever it is you've been doing, it's been a little crazy. Now we're going to go like, we're here, we're at GSD, we're going to focus. So that's kind of the purpose of that. Any questions about those? And I'm not saying those are perfect examples. I was trying to come up with something that was both like energy, building community, talking, and then one that was a little more like you got the chatty Cathy's and you need them to like take it down a few notches, right? Some other tools that you can use. If you haven't already, I'm sure you probably will at some point use Kahoot. Kahoot is a really fun interactive game type tool. A lot of the students have used that in high school. A lot of them have done Kahoot. I just have to tell you, you have to make sure you have your speakers up because for whatever reason, they love the goofy music that plays in the background. I don't know why, but they love the music. So you've got to have the music. A few other ones, there's a tool called Bookending. There's a tool called Wayground. And also, if you didn't know, Canvas also has an online whiteboard called Lucid. And I did not know much about this until last week. I'm like frantically trying to think of how I can use this in my own classes, but it's basically an online whiteboard. And so that's another tool. Canva has a whiteboard. There's lots of, you could even just do a Google Doc and give them a bit.ly or a tiny URL to open up for everybody to like contribute at once if you wanted to use more of an interactive whiteboard type thing. Poll Everywhere is a really good tool to use too if you want a quick, polling type thing. Quotes or short videos, goal setting, those are just throwing out some ideas. Anybody else use these or use a good bell ringer or open class starter thing that we would share that other people might benefit from knowing?
I do icebreakers every class. It's very similar to what you did.
Yeah.
Nothing new to add to that, just that I consistently do it. And I think it really brings the energy every class. So-
Yeah.
And also I'm in the afternoon, so they're very much awake.
Oh, okay.
Which is
Gotcha.
helpful.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
it seems to get them more comfortable.
Good. I love that. Anybody else?
I do bell ringers we do bell ringers and exit tickets every class.
Right.
To kind of, and sometimes they're reflective from the bell ringer and the exit ticket being tied as far as what they've learned or
Yeah.
how their idea might have changed over the class
Yeah.
period.
I love that. Love that. So for those who are online, I don't know if you heard or not, but basically somebody was saying that they do these every class and that sometimes they connect the bell ringer to the exit slip to see like as their answer or their thoughts or growth, can you see some growth between when they come in and when they leave? Love that. Okay. The next part is exit tickets. So exit tickets are kind of what they are, a tool to use at the end of class. And their main purpose is, unlike the bell ringer or the class starter, you're not kicking off, but rather you're sort of wrapping up, right? The end of a lesson. So you're assessing their learning and their confidence. You know, how well do they feel like they understand? You know, do they understand what they are learning? And then this can also be an indicator for you. I probably need to talk about this a little more in the next class, or I need to develop some kind of, you know, not a quiz, but, you know, some kind of activity to really like help them learn that a little bit deeper. So benefits, provides you real-time feedback on their understanding. I don't know about you, but I've been teaching for a long time. I was a high school teacher before I got into higher ed and a full-time librarian, but in my library role, we do a lot of one-shots. We see students one time and we're delivering a lot of instruction and a lot of content. And I don't know about you, but sometimes like just because of my nature, I try to read the room, you know, try to get the vibe. And, you know, sometimes they can nod and smile and completely that belies what is going on up here. Yeah. And they're like, what did she just say? You know, and so, but having something concrete, this exit ticket can really give you a little bit more assurance about whether you're accurate in your reading of the room, right? Whether they're getting it or not. It also encourages self-assessment, foster reflection. And that's what I was talking about, that constantly helping them to reflect and think about their own learning, where they're at. Do you get it? And not just like skirting over that. That reflection piece is so important. It also can help build those relationships through those interactions that you're having with them. And again, thinking about after an instruction, after a class, if you just think they did not get that, or there's a lot of them that didn't get it, this can help inform what you do in a future class. So again, low tech versus high tech. There's not necessarily a reason to only use one kind. Again, I'm a big fan of trying all the different kinds to reach students at all their levels and all of their personal preferences. So sticky notes, index cards. One of the things I used to do when I first started in the library, and I actually do this with doctoral students sometimes, when we're in a class, I'll give everybody an index card and say, okay, what's one thing you want to learn from our session today? They know they're coming in for research. They know they're prepping for a literature review or whatever it is. And I give them a little index card. And as soon as they walk in the door, 5-10 minutes before class, or even as soon as class starts, and I collect all of those. And while they're kind of settling, sometimes the professor is, you know, taking roll or whatever, I'll arrange those on my little podium or whatever I'm working from. But then for me, okay, I know I'm going to cover these things. Oh, but here's 3 things I didn't think about that they want to learn. That's another good way for you to kind of figure out, you know, even if you gave them a card and they were supposed to have read the chapter on wellness, maybe you just ask them to tell me what are the 7 areas of wellness. You know, and then you get a little vibe of, Okay, so did they get it or not? Or maybe even do that at the end, right? So kind of a blend. High tech, things like Socrative. I love Socrative. I haven't used it in a while, but I really do like that. Padlet, Canvas. Again, there's things you can do in Canvas, Google Forms. Google Forms are great because those will feed into a spreadsheet. You can kind of see them all together. So I also am a huge fan of Google Forms. Again, super simple, not a lot of, tech tools that you have to know to create a Google form. So some of the examples that Dana came up with for exit tickets. So she's looking at this example of mindfulness. So asking them, what are 3 different ways to practice mindfulness every day? Do you believe in the benefits? Why or why not? What advice would you give to a friend who always seems to feel more stress than their situation calls for? And you're looking for hopefully them to tie in some of the things that you've either covered in class and or things that have been covered in the textbook. So love this. This is a super common exit ticket strategy. Super common. I know this is used probably in K-12, all the levels, and I know it's used in college classes too. The 3-2-1. So 3 things you remember, 2 examples of what you learned, and 1 question you still have, or maybe something you're confused about. I love this strategy. Again, it's like asking them to think about what did we cover today, and then 2 things that you learned, not just the black and white, lowest knowledge level of the hierarchy, right? But this is saying examples of something you learned, not just these are these 3 things, and then a question you still have about covering. Okay, so we wanted to give you guys a few minutes to write some prompts for an exit ticket. If you want, we can also use this as an opportunity. Dana created this, an opportunity to practice a bell ringer as well, like the get starts, okay? And again, we're going to use Canva Live for this, so everybody can share some ideas. And since some of you, hint, are already using those, wink, wink, this would be a great chance for you to drop some ideas in. If you've got ideas as we were talking, some of the things that either Dana had on her slides or I had on mine, or as you're just, maybe the wheels are turning, please share some ideas, either for an exit slip or a bell ringer, either one. Canva.live, and then you have to put the new code in there. Every time you do it, it's got a new code. Oh, I love that. Huh? Some great ideas. Takeaways, there's a couple of people who were writing like, after today's discussion, after our topic, what questions do you still have? Give me 1 takeaway from today's lesson of that. Someone said I use index cards. and do both with every class for metacognition. One class, we didn't have the bell ringer and they asked why not. That goes back to that routine, right? I don't know that they all love it, but I do think they're, the more interactive and varying formats that you can offer, I think they do kind of look forward to that. Because again, it's that routine. It's something they like the structure of it. I like this one. An exit slip I do on the regular is ask students at the end questions, concerns, snide remark, joke of the day. What that joke of the day? I should start I'm too old to do that, but if I was young and cool, I would try a joke of the day. Just because it's just kind of fun. I think I'm too old and they probably would go over their heads. Or are you trying to be cool? When working, go ahead.
Oh, I was asking if you want to see.
When working on competence, I use the question, what are you proud of yourself for today or this week? I love that. What are you proud of? I love that. Bell ringer for the financial literacy module. If you had $100, what would you spend it on? I love that. Sometimes I use Mentimeter to poll students. Yes, Mentimeter is phenomenal. Love that. Before and after lessons. What was your favorite thing about today? List 3 things you'd like to discuss in the next class about this week's topic. Love that connection, sort of building that bridge to the next class. For a bell ringer, what strategies do you currently use to track or manage your finances? And you could do an exit ticket on what new strategies have you learned that you hope to use to manage your finances. Man, talking about finances with students, we got to do that. I feel like we could definitely have a whole semester just talking about finances, right? For college students. Oh my gosh. My kids are 20, my girls are 25 and my son is 23. And yeah, man, just the things they don't tell you as a parent of a young adult. Like you hear all about the toddlers and the teenage, you hear about those, but nobody tells you about this. And the money thing, the financial thing is so big. And I think for those first generation college students that haven't had somebody to talk them through the whole financial aid thing. And they're just signing away their lives on these loans and they don't really understand what that means. And they're like, oh, I just got this bill for $12,000. Like, I love that. A Max series exit slip. Was there anyone in your life who impacted your decision on a future major or career? Great.
I had that one, which I stole the mic just to make sure too that in case. But so very similar to you, I taught high school and used exit slips all the time for mainly 2 reasons. The first, if I did a good enough job, because sometimes I would teach slope and I did not do a good job, and I needed to see if the students got the content. But then the other thing that you mentioned earlier that like has really struck a chord with me positively about exit slips is that I like to ask questions that are not Googleable, I guess, if that makes sense. Like I use it as a moment for asking things that may be a little bit really close to home, right? Like that's why I put the like who impacted your life, because they may not want to say that in front of others. And things of like that aren't easily Googleable. Like I don't want to be like, well, where's Biggie Central? And then they can Google it and then write it down. It's like I want them to like think a little bit. So yeah, no. I appreciate all the
And too, if maybe not all of them, but maybe some of them appreciate that you're asking them something that is a little more personal, not like deep, dark secrets, but just something where I'm learning about you individually and not just some generic, answer. That's so true. How will you use what you learned today in real life? Okay. Hand out sticky notes, have each student place a question or a comment on the sticky note and place it under the various topics written on the board, used as a vote, used to gather misconceptions, used to gather a starting point for the next class, etc. I have pictures that, how Time Hop reminds you of what you did a year ago. So every year I took years ago when I used to teach in Wallace, wasn't the last year I taught GSD, but anyway, one of the years I taught in Wallace, And I wrote, like hand wrote a question, and I did that as well. Have them take sticky notes. And like, instead of writing on the board, just take a sticky note at your seat and pop it underneath whatever those questions were. Not that there's any like magic to them not writing, but that way they can take a minute on their own. And I don't have to worry about like, everybody gets a marker out, you know, it's much easier. Everybody's got something to write with usually, or they could borrow one. So here's a sticky note and then have them up there. And it also, I like this person, the idea of using it as a vote too. You know, what's your preference or whatever. So again, this could also be something you used in the corners too. Do something like that with the sticky notes. List 3 steps required for a monthly budget. Yes, talk about the money, talk about the finances, yes. Okay, so gonna end that and go to our exit slip. So again, this will be another live, but I would love for you all to share one thing that will stick with you from today's TLI. And maybe it just reinforced, maybe the things that we talked about just reinforce what you're already doing. You guys may already have some, you know, great things. I mean, I love these ideas that you came up with. So just one thing that's going to stick with you from today's TLI. This is for us. To hear your thoughts. Like that. A few people talked about tying together the bell ringer and the exit, like a pre and post test of that. That was thanks to you today. Some ideas for icebreakers and exit slips, the benefits. And you know, I put some of the online tools that I figured the session wasn't necessarily about the tech tools. You can Google those. You know, you don't have to use anything like that, but I am a person that I like to try new tools. I like to try new things just to see, is this a good fit for me? Oh, not so good for me. You know, just like the Canva Live thing. You know, there's some tools that I just already know. I'm just going to stumble on that, and that's just not going to work for me. But, you know, then there might be another one. You're like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this. So that's why I just listed them on there. Of course, you can always Google, find different ones. You know, several people mentioned Canva Live. Yeah, and I liked what this person said. Now that I know their names, that has been my bell ringer, getting to know the students, I really need to have them get focused while I take attendance. So this is a good reminder to prepare something for them to complete in the first 5 minutes. I think that's so smart that, you know, especially these larger classes, you do 5 minutes of your time or 6 minutes, you know, as they're trickling in, it kind of feels like lost instructional time. And so bell ringers are a great way to not lose that, to at least get their attention while you're trying to, you know, take attendance. That's so smart, so true. Yeah, reinforcing that bell ringers, they tie into the lesson with reinforcing that bell ringer that ties into the lesson with the exit slip. Yeah, continuity and variety, yes. Mixing up the formats. Relevant to their experience, their students' experiences and interests. And then lucid, definitely, I attended a session, like I said, last week on lucid. It was led by an instructional designer and one of the faculty members from the College of Education and Applied Human Sciences. And it's got templates you can use if you want to try those. But I encourage you to look into that because it's definitely, it's already in Canvas. They're using Canvas, so it's right there in their path. And like I said, they've got, it's also cool instructionally, like during class. But I think it could be used in a bell ringer or an exit slip, either one, so. Neat.
And I will say for GSD people, if you want to use Lucid, our course shell has it quote unquote hidden as of right now. You can go to settings and navigation to make it unhidden. And you can utilize it absolutely because like you were saying, it's tied to Canvas. So
Yeah, it's in there. I didn't know anything about it. I used to use Jamboard, Google Jamboard, like. It was literally, I used it in every class. I don't care what class it was. I always used Jamboard and then it went away. I guess I kind of get it, but it doesn't make me any less unhappy about it, but, I loved Jamboard. And so I'm looking for options and the ones that that sell themselves as alternatives, I think I think they take too long to learn, to use. And, Lucid, could lean in that direction a little bit, but. So we also provided you some links to some different articles on bell ringers and exit slips. And I will say that, I don't know, we haven't made an official adoption yet, so I can say this since we haven't officially adopted anything yet. But, ChatGPT is really good at bell ringers. You might even also try Magic School AI if you put in your learning objectives and it will give you some activities. But I really like in the prompt to be really specific about my goals for the learning for that day. And ChatGPT is really good. And I'm sure Gemini would be really good about it because I guess we'll officially adopt Gemini at some point, but Gemini is also decent at it. So if you're looking for some ideas, you'll have to tailor them because your students, ChatGPT, there's some things it's good at, some things not so much, but hopefully these resources will give you some, they're not, what do you call it, like these long scholarly 20-page articles. There's nothing wrong with those, but that's not what this was. We wanted to give you something practical that you could use and not, I want to read this theory about why bell ringers and exit slips work. We didn't think that was what you all would want, and I wouldn't want it either personally, so. All right, well, that's all we have.
well, okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. We appreciate it. I'm gonna stick around on the Zoom just a little bit longer in case anybody has any questions or anything, and I'll stick in the room as well for people in person. We'll stick around in case we got any questions. Otherwise, thank you all for attending, and we will get the presentation and stuff out to you all soon. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, who offered the Lucid? Was it through CEHS?
Yeah, Bill Thornburg and Ann Eason were the ones that, and I assume. I'm trying to think if it was. Who sent it to me?
Yeah.
But Ann is
Bill
the
mentioned it, yeah.
yeah, and Ann is the ID for them, so she